Welcome, and thank you for taking your seat at the Cosmic Fire, where we are gathering together with shamanic earth-based healers, teachers, thought leaders, and allies to light the way into our future. During these times of great transformation, it is important for each one of us to find our own courageous solutions for the problems of today's world. Around the cosmic fire, wisdom and medicine will be shared for creating holistic health and well-being, harmonious living, real sustainability, and the potential for both personal and global change. The gathering at the Cosmic Fire Summit is brought to you by Shamans Directory, an online global platform for shamanic earth-based services. At Shamans Directory, we believe that it is time to bring shamanic earth-based wisdom and medicine to the forefront of people's minds when considering their overall health and well-being and the future of our planet. I'm Ava Tree Bloom. I'm one of your hosts at the Cosmic Fire, and I am so delighted to welcome Zahra, Indigo, Run Love.
Hello.
Welcome. For those of you who don't know Zahra, I am going to take a moment to let you know a little bit more about her wonderful work. Zahra Indigo Run Love is an eco-psychologist, a healing alchemist, a priestess of Ma'at, a sacred pilgrimage guide, a teacher, an author, an artist, and a mom. Zahra is a sacred witness to the unfolding complexity, beauty, and mystery of this existence. It is her intention to live life in service to the health of our planet and all who reside here. And in this, she has discovered something quite profound and rewarding. She received her master's degree in eco-psychology from Naropa University. Zahra is a Sufi initiate, and she is a minister of walking prayer. She is also a priestess of Ma'at. She is dedicated to serving truth in every way she is able to perceive it. With an endless entrepreneurial spirit, she owns and operates Sacred Witness, the parent company of Truth House or Truth House Press, Healing Alchemy, and Sacred Witness pilgrimages. Being dedicated to holding space as a sacred witness, Zahra Indigo guides the unfolding of that which needs healing by creating the space for physical, spiritual, and emotional health to take root. Today's topic of conversation is the archetypal significance of the Egyptian NETERU. And I am so excited to learn more. So let's dive in, and please let us know, who are the Egyptian NETERU and how do they represent archetypal truths for us today?
Well, the NETERU is the ancient Egyptian word for the gods and goddesses of Egypt, the pantheon of Egypt. And they are nature deities, most of them. Most of the Egyptian gods and goddesses are representations or archetypes of the natural world. And it's an interesting thing to note that the word NETERU or NETERU, as it moved through history, it came to the Coptic period of when Christianity began to rise. And the word NETERU became the word for God, Neter, in the Coptic world. And so to this day, if you're in a Coptic church in Egypt and you hear the priest praying, you'll hear the word Neter. That's NETERU transferred into God. And then if you listen to that word Neter over time, it becomes nature, which brings it right back around to the original NETERU, who were the gods and goddesses of the world: Thoth, the ibis; Sekhmet, the lioness; Anubis, the jackal, etc. The NETERU. And I apologize, I have two NETERU, two Bast, the cat goddess, running around the house today. So if you see flashes of movement. That is my two NETERU who I live with.
That's beautiful. I love how, yeah, how that word morphs into this essence of nature. I would love to know more about how you bring that essence into your healing work, and more about the archetypal truths that that represents.
Right. Well, all over the world, throughout time, the archetypal essences can be reflected, right? No matter what tradition you look into, you see the mother, you see the father, you see the earth, you see the justice, you see the courage, you see all these different aspects, all these different archetypes that are a part of who we are. And in the ancient Egyptian world, they recognize those archetypes throughout the natural world as a reflection of who they are, who they were, who we are today, right? Because what is true is, even though the ancient Egyptian truths have moved into our modern world, right? And there's certain mythologies and stories from that they've, deciphered from the hieroglyphs. The NETERU are living entities. They're living essences. And when we begin to understand the underlying archetype of these essences, then we can look at those essences in relationship to ourselves in terms of what we need. We need support, we need healing, we need courage. Then we can call on those energies to give us the strength or the nurturing or whatever it is that we're needing in that moment.
So
Yeah.
are they when you say call on them, they are to be found in nature, but also found within ourselves? Is
With
that
ourselves. So in that shamanic kind of mode where we go into a journey state, into a deeper state, into a theta brainwave state, if we want to use a little bit of that kind of perspective, we go deeper in and we ask, um, I need to feel more balanced in my world, and I need the support of Ma'ats to come to me and bring me that balance. And then I can call on that energy, that deity, that archetype to come and work with me to bring me whatever it is I need. Yeah.
powerful? Wow. And so that brings me to my next question, and I'd love to know more about Ma'at. And it's such a, yeah, I mean, I would just love to, you have so much to bring here, and please just keep opening that portal for our audience today. That's beautiful.
So Ma'at, for me, I'll speak for me. She is the most essential of all the NETERU. And all of them are important, right? They all have their role to play, but she's the foundation, right? All the gods stand upon the foundation of Ma'at. Without the foundation of Ma'at, we have disorder, we have chaos. And nothing wrong with chaos. There's a moment for chaos and disorder, right? But if we don't have order, then we don't have the cohesion for the planets to stay in orbit around the sun. We don't have the cohesion to have the solar system stay in orbit in this galaxy, right? If we don't have cohesion of Ma'at, the cosmic order, the natural law, the balance, the justice, the truth, the harmony of Ma'at, then everything falls apart. The natural world falls apart. The crops don't grow. The civilizations deteriorate. And so she is the foundation. She is the scales upon which the spiritual heart of all of us is weighed against her feather. One of her symbols is an ostrich feather. And when you're looking at the walls and the papyri of Egypt, of ancient Egypt, you'll know it's Ma'at because she has this feather on her head. Why an ostrich feather? What's that about? And I think that there's two reasons for the ostrich feather with Ma'at. One of them is if you hold, I wish I had one right here, I'd show you. If you hold an ostrich feather, right, and it's got all these little featherlets that go off to the side, and they're very wispy and fluid, and they're equal on both sides. So you have the spine or the quill, and then on this side it goes out, and on this side, and so on. So it's equal all the way up. And Ma'at is balance. Ma'at is balance, as above, so below, as within, so without, which is a Thoth is another Egyptian god. That's one of his things. But that's balance, right? That comes from Ma'at. And the other thing with the ostrich feather, if in a very still room where there's no fans, there's no open windows, and you feel no discernible currents of air, and you hold an ostrich feather and you watch it, it begins to move, right? So it's able to pick up the subtlest of currents of energy. And what I equate that to is it being able to detect truth, right? What is truth? Well, it has that way to detect the truthfulness. And so when we use the feather as our compass in life, then we can find this path of truth, of justice, of harmony, of balance, right? So she is essential. One of the stories that I've heard and passed on time and time again is a truth, I want to just stop for a second and distinguish. There's a truth. You have a truth. I have a truth, right? All of you who are listening, watching, have a truth. My cats have a truth. The tree outside has a truth, right? The smallest of microbes has a truth. The largest of whales has a truth. Each planet has a truth. But that's not the truth, right? Ma'at is the truth. I think of it as truth with a capital T. She is the sum total of all that is true. Not like what I'd like it to be true, but the truth beyond our desire, beyond our heart's yearning, beyond our stories that we build around ourselves in our lifetimes. She is the big truth. And in ancient Egypt, all the children, all the babies, all the humans were born into that world knowing that they served Ma'at. Yes, there was Sekhmet there. Yes, there was Osiris. Yes, there was Aset or Isis. Yes, there was Anubis. Yes, there was all this pantheon of deities, but they were there to serve Ma'at. They're there to serve truth. And the Pharaoh himself, who in that day, right, was the leader of the land. He was the God incarnate onto the planet to care for the civilization, to care for the people, to care for the earth, to bring forward that cosmic law into their world. His job was to receive Ma'at, right? Here's Ma'at. He would receive it and he would care for it. And then at the end of the reign, he would pass it on. He would let it go. He would hand it over, right? So that Ma'at was the principle upon which all his actions had to flow. And if he was acting out of accordance with Ma'at, then chaos would come to the land. The floods would come and stay too long, or the floods wouldn't come and there would be drought, right? These kind of things. There would be fighting and war. And of course, humans being humans, we get caught up sometimes in our stuff and we forget truth. And I think that, dare I say, looking at the world today, that Ma'at is kind of disappointed in us humans. She's like, what's going on? Why aren't all the leaders of the lands receiving Ma'at, caring for Ma'at, and returning Ma'at or passing Ma'at on? And I ponder sometimes what the world would be like if every president, every prime minister, every ruler of every chief, every one, and then all the people remembered to stand upon that foundation of Ma'at. We wouldn't be ripping apart the fine things and putting one species cells into another, like in bioengineering. We wouldn't be doing a lot of the stuff we're doing. We wouldn't be throwing chemicals all over the earth and mass monocropping. We wouldn't be cutting down forests so that we could, burn wood or make toilet paper. So Ma'at is really important. I think one other thing I would share about her is I mentioned earlier this weighing of the heart, the weighing of the heart. In the ancient days, the heart was called an ab, or ib, ib. The hieroglyphs didn't write the vowels, so in our modern world, where it's kind of a guess of what the vowel sound would be with the consonant sound. So I say ab, some say ib, potato, potato. Anyway, so what would happen is during the lifetime, the individual would have 42 what they would call negative confessions. And these negative confessions were like, I did not steal. I did not lie. I did not sleep with the neighbor's spouse. I did not kill. I did not this. I did not that, right? So it was basically a list of 42 things that they didn't do to prove that they were a good person, right? And each individual would have their own list of 42 negative confessions. And then when that person breathed their last breath and left the physical container of this body and moved into the next, they would arrive at the halls of two truths, right? Truth and truth, their truth and cosmic truth, the truth of Ma'at. And there in the hall of two truths were 42 assessors. Now, these assessors were all minor deities of the 42 nomes or counties of the ancient world. And the individual, the supplicant, would go to the first one and say, hail their name. I did not, ... And then they'd move on to the next one. Hail the name of that deity. I did not. And they would go through and they would declare these 42 confessions. And then they would come upon the scales. And there, the heart, Anubis would take the heart. Anubis is the jackal god of mummification, and he's like the protector of the heart way. He would take the heart, he'd put it on the scale, and not the physical heart ripped out of the chest, but the spiritual heart, the ab, which is the representative, it is represented by a vase, like a vessel, right? So you take the vessel, put it on the scale, and it would weigh. Now, if that heart was heavier than the feather, it means that maybe they lied about those 42 confessions. Maybe their heart is filled with deceit or poor judgment or, a bad life, a sinful life, so to speak. And at that point, then there was another deity who was on the standby, and her name was Amet. And Amet was a composite god. So she was a goddess made of a hippopotamus, a crocodile, and a lioness, the three fiercest beasts of the ancient world, and fierce today too. They're, they're pretty fierce beasties. And so if the heart was heavy, she would gobble up the soul, and that would be that. It's over, game done. But if the heart balanced or even was lighter than the feather, then the soul, the supplicant, the one that's passing through this liminal space, would then be able to move on to meet Osiris, who would open the door to the field of reeds. The field of reeds was their name for the afterlife, for heaven, for paradise, whatever you want to call it. And on you would go. And there was other trials and tribulations that they'd have to move through in that liminal space. But this, the weighing of the heart, was really an essential aspect of that journey for them. For me personally, well, what does this, this question of how does it apply in the modern world, right? This is a story of how the ancients believed the afterlife process happened. For me, what I've come to see is that it's not so much about making 42 negative confessions that look backwards about what I didn't do. It's about what are 42 positive dedications or declarations that I can create for myself moving into my life from this moment, even if my life is till the end of today. How am I walking with Ma'at, essentially? How am I walking with truth? How am I walking in a way where I can say, I will not lie. I will not steal. I will not talk behind another's back. I will not, you know, sleep with someone in an unethical way. I will not, dot, 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 whatever it is. And then every day is filled with that truth of Ma'at, so that when I come to that point, whether it's at the end of today, next week, next month, next year, hopefully 25 or 30 years from now, I've lived this life of truth and justice and harmony and balance, and that I can wake up each day and know that my heart is light and, dare I say, pure, so that my choices on the planet today are based on the well-being of all of us, from the smallest to the largest, the humankind, the four-legged kind, right? The slithering kind, the flying kind, the swimming kind, the rooted kind, all of us, right? Living in a kind way, being life together on this planet symbiotically. Now, that's not exactly what's happening everywhere. I think a lot of people are really trying to do the best they can, right? This is also a truth. We are all waking up, and we are presented with whatever it is that our life is, from what we've brought to that moment to what we're hoping for moving into the next. But the more and more we can come into this place of, dare I say, what would Ma'at do? What would Ma'at do? How can I live into this moment with Ma'at as my guide? So that's a big, long, who's Ma'at, you say, and woof, there's a lot there. She's super important. And all the other deities are super important too, because here we have Thoth, or Jehute is his traditional name. He's represented as an ibis, right? And the ibis is a bird, a sacred ibis. And in the ancient days, they don't have ibis much in Egypt anymore. They've moved on. Ma'at sort of is moved on, I think, in some ways, trying to help the whole planet become more balanced. But Thoth is the scribe. He's the wisdom keeper. He's like the master teacher, right? So he's there to help teach. His consort is Ma'at. And so anything that he writes in his book of records of all the doings, of all of the happenings, of all of the cosmos, there he is, with his feathered quill in his book. He's writing it down, but he can only write truth. He's not writing, oh, once upon a time there was in a fairy tale kind of way. He's writing what is. And so he needs Ma'at by his side to be able to do that. There's another god, Ptah. Ptah is a creator god who creates the world through the word. He says tree, and there's tree. He says river, and there's river. He says coffee, my coffee. He says coffee, and there's coffee. Praise be to the coffee in the morning. And they say his heart and his tongue is Ma'at, because he can't say anything that is not truth, right? And he's actually a man of few words, because if everything he says comes to be, then he's not just going to go chatter, 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 because then it would get kind of chaotic. And then there's Sekhmet. She's a lioness goddess. She's fierce. She's also compassionate. Her role is to be the guardian of Ma'at, to protect Ma'at. And, her story is an interesting one, because Re, the sun, is looking down upon the earth, shining down, watching over this beautiful planet. Geb was the name of Earth in the ancient days. Geb was the earth, and Nuit is the sky. I'm doing that because that's the symbol of her in the ancient worlds. And so he's looking down upon Geb and all of the life, all of the humans doing their things, and he's seeing that the humans had forgotten their truth. and they're acting out accordance with Ma'at. They're doing things that aren't in line with natural law and justice. And so he calls his daughter Sekhmet, the lioness goddess. And he says, "Dear Sekhmet, please go and help the people remember their truth." And she comes into the scene and she sees what everybody's doing and she becomes enraged, because how could they? How dare they act outside of Ma'at? And rather than being like, "Hello, dear humans, let me help you remember," she forgot herself, right? She went red and she slashed and savaged and went into a very fierce place. And of course, then Ray is like, "Oh, well, that's not quite what I meant, dear one. You know, we needed you to help them remember, not take them down." And so he consults with the wise one, Jehute or Thoth. Thoth, what do I do? Thoth says, make a brew.
Hmm.
Make a brew with calming herbs, with some pomegranate juice to make it red, and pour it out upon the land. She'll see it, she'll think it's blood, she'll drink it, and it will help her come into a calm state to help her remember her own heart, right? So that then rather than hurting, she can heal. And so then she became the great healer to help heal those that she had hurt. And interestingly, sort of an aside, as I spoke in the very beginning about the NETERU being reflections of nature, many things in the stories were a reflection of the natural world. For example, this red brew that they say, some say it was poured in a puddle, some say it was poured into the river. Well, every year the Nile would flood. You know, now they've dammed the river, so it doesn't flood, unfortunately. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword there. But the very beginning of that flood, when it would be pushing all of whatever it was from the far south of Africa, pushing it, it came as red. It was a red flood, was the very beginning, right? And so then there's this sense of a reset when the flood would come, right? So they would see the red is coming, they would see that it was going to take over the land, right? But then that flood water would recede and it would leave all the nutrients, all the health, the healing, the food, right, that would grow in the rich soils. And in fact, ancient Egypt was called Kem, the land of Kem. The word alchemy comes from Egypt. And Kem meant the black lands, right? And that truly was an alchemical process of the floodwaters coming, starting with the red. I believe it was like a red algae that would be coming through, and then it would leave all of the composting, all the whatever it pulled from the south, and that became alchemized into the land, right? The waters would recede, and then there would be the nutrients to grow the seed. So there was the alchemy, the seed being able to take earth and air and fire and water and become food, become human, become animal, become life. So I'll stop there. Could keep like the water's flowing.
Wow. Thank you so much for this teaching. I feel a big transmission coming through you. You are, you know, bringing forth so much wisdom here. I really appreciate all of this. I know our listeners are loving this as well. So thank you. Um, yeah, there were so many pieces there, but just to loop back where you just kind of made that pause, that was beautiful to hear about the alchemy. And I know that that's also at the essence, or at the heart of a lot of what you're bringing forward in your work, through one-on-one sessions, through this alchemic healing process. And I wonder if you might want to speak to that and what that looks like, and how, what are you transforming? What is that? What does that look like?
Right. Well, alchemy right? I just spoke a little bit about this far ancient root of alchemy, the alchem, chem, the land of chem. Um, but alchemy then moved into the kind of European realm for a long time, where you had the alchemists who were looking for the philosopher's stone, or looking to transmute lead into gold, right? How to work. They were like the chemists of the time, right? They were playing with the elements, not just earth, air, fire, water, but the elements, the metals, the ethers, the gases, the plants, you know, how to take a plant and turn it, alchemize it into medicine, right? All of that. So that's a very physical way of working with alchemy. Alchemy is also, there's a spiritual alchemy, right, where you work with the soul of the individual, the emotions of the individual, the mind of the individual, to take the lead, the base matter of whatever is going on for them, and to help transmute it into the alchemical gold. So it's sort of like an awakening process or an enlightenment process. And so when I'm working with somebody, like in a one-on-one kind of setting, we just arrive first. That's where we start, right? We arrive. We breathe, because breath is that beautiful, beautiful moment of recognizing, when we take a moment to remember we're breathing, that we're remembering the interconnectedness that we have with the cosmos. This truth that this breath that we're breathing, you there in your space, me here in my space, it's the same breath that the ancient Egyptians breathed, right? They took a breath and they exhaled, and that breath has now been traveling around the world for how many thousands of years. And then I breathe it in and I breathe it out. So we arrive recognizing that this breath that we're breathing, you know, when we breathe out, when we breathe in, we're breathing in the out breath of the plant life, right? And when we breathe out, the plant life is breathing in our out breath, right? This symbiotic truth of our interconnectedness. And so we start there. We start with the breath. I often think about how our breath breathes us. And what I mean by that is, you know, we come out of our mama's womb, and the very first act of our life is to breathe, to take that breath. And it's automatic. There's no like, oh, should I take a breath now? Should I wait a moment longer? Right? There's no conscious thought about it. And then from that breath forward, our breath breathes us. It breathes us. It keeps us breathing. But then when we come into this moment where we stop and we bring awareness to our breath, suddenly we are breathing our breath. It's a very subtle shift, but it is a shift, right? Because we're doing so with awareness and presence. And in that presence, that's where we begin. And in that presence, the intention is invoked. What is the intention? My knee's hurting. My heart's hurting. I'm confused. I'm lost. I'm looking for my purpose. I have a disease that is moving through me that I'm working with to help it transmute and move on, right? So breath and then intention. Okay, here's the intention. And I mirror back that intention so that they hear it through their ears, not just through their mouth. And then we take another breath, allowing that breath and that intention to mix together. And then often they have their eyes closed. And if it's a physical ailment, I will look to call on a plant ally, because the plant, the rooted ones throughout the world, have come to our aid in so many ways, not just as the food we eat and the nutrients we get from that food that becomes us, you know, but in the medicines that they provide and the healing they provide. and the spirit of the plants are readily available to assist. So maybe someone has they fell and they have a big bruise, just go something simple. And so then I might call on Arnica. Hello, dear friend Arnica. And I will, not usually out loud, but I will ask Arnica and its genus, its family, the spirit of what and who Arnica is, if it's willing to help in this moment. And almost always it says, well, of course, dear Zahra Indigo, we would love to help. And so then I call in the spirit of that plant and I bring it to the space where the bruise is. And it's working like, so there's the physical plant, and we're not herbalists. I don't recommend, I don't prescribe herbs. I don't say, hello, okay, hey, Arnica came, go to the store, buy Arnica. I don't do that. I mean, if the client takes that upon themselves, that's their choice. So there's that physical aspect. And then there's like homeopathy, which is the essence of that kind of down in the deep, small molecular aspect of it, of that essence. And then there's the spirit of it. And so the spirit of the plant is able to go into a very deep way and help kind of rebuild the matrix of the blueprint of the physical body in that way. So I'll call on the plants. Oftentimes I'll ask the client if there's a plant that is here to help them, because their wisdom is huge. Even if they don't know about plants, they might, oh yeah, there's this plant and it's a vine and I don't know what it is, but it kind of looks like this, right? And I'm like, hello, plant that's a vine that kind of looks like this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And we call it in. It could be that we call on an ally. Dear grandmother bear, please come and work with us. We need to find the herb that can help this individual in their healing journey. And Bear, who knows the forest like the back of her paw, can go and find that herb and bring it to us. It may be that we call in a deity, a NETERU from Egypt, or, one of the Greek pantheon, one of the Norse pantheon, or the Hindu. There are so many allies throughout the world that want to help us. And so then we work with those individuals, those archetypes, I'll use that word, those archetypes. And because Hindu and Egyptian and Norse and Greek and Roman, they all reflect each other, right? There are reflections within reflections within reflections. One of the other things that I think is really important in the work I do is that I don't call myself a healer. I don't think I'm the healer. I help in the healing process. This is true, right? But the healer is the combination of myself, the recipient, and the allies. It's when those three come together, that's the healer. The healer is the sum total of all three of us. Three, I mean, the allies are more than one, right? But in the moment, I'm grouping them into a singular. So when those three aspects come together, into presence, into breath, into attention, when we give them our attention, that's where the healer comes from. And so my job is to guide that process, to listen deeply, not just with my ears, but with my whole of my being, to listen and to watch, to see the subtlest of movements. Maybe the client's coming in like this, and then through the process, they bend, open up. And by the end, their shoulders are back and their heart is open and they're looking up, right? Because what's true is when we're like this, we can only see what's right in front of us, right? We're very narrow focused. But then when we do this, when our heart opens, suddenly we're like, whoa, look at all the possibilities. There's so many. So it's about helping them to feel and to know the power of their own ability to heal. And I ask a lot of questions. One of my very most favorite questions is simply, what do you notice now? We brought Arnica in. What do you notice? There's a tingling. Beautiful. Follow that tingling, right? oh, and then my question paired with their response is what leads to the next question, right? And so it's a very intuitive and intuitive on my part. I have to get out of my own way. I have to have no expectations of what I think the individual, the recipient needs. I have to just arrive with them. And even if it's someone that I've seen many, many, many times, I get out of my way. I have no expectations. I don't bring what happened before forward into this moment, because this moment is a whole new moment, right? Right now is all that is. And if they bring up the past, that's fine. Then we work with that. But it's about arriving. A quick little story. I have many teachers, but two of them particularly brought two pieces of a truth through, one way over in this one period of time, and then many, many, many years later, the other here. So the first is Nikki Scully, is her name. I want to honor her. And she helped me to really learn how to work in this way and walk in this way and to sit in presence with people in this way through alchemical healing. And she would often say, the coin of the realm. And now, when she says the realm, she's talking about in like our journey world. And when we're working with the allies, when we're working with the deities, when we're working with the spirit animals and plant spirits, that realm, that inner realm that is actually the outer realm, right? She said the coin of the realm is to pay attention. We pay with our attention. That's what we do. We pay attention. And I realized pretty quickly that it's not just about the inner realm. It's also about the outer realm. When I show up with a client and pay attention to them, something deep happens. When I'm able to pay attention to my teenager, something beautiful happens, right? When I'm able to pay attention to the way the light is bouncing off the leaves of the trees and the wind is making them dance, something happens, right? So the coin of the realms, I'll say realms, inner and outer realms, is to pay attention. And I thought that was very fun. And okay, I worked with that. Years later, I'm with another of my teachers, Jyoti Ma is her name. And she's speaking to us, and she says, the key to the realm. And I'm like, the key? I know the coin. I'm paying attention. What's the key? And she says, just show up. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious, just show up. And so these two women, between this many, many year span, brought together into a singular truth something that now I have repeated and shared and taught, and I bring it into all of my classes, because when we show up into the present moment, right? Not, oh, I got this thing I got to do, or, oh, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but here I am, sitting in my chair at my desk. Here we are, right? The trees are blowing, the sun is shining, the cats are calm, right? I'm showing up right now, right? And I'm paying attention. Everything I need is right here, right? It's not about what I wish it was or what I'm not happy about it being. It's about what is, arriving into the what is of life, showing up and paying attention. And then from that place springs an endless well of potentiality. So I don't know if I quite got to where your question was. I went circuitously around that, but I invite us all to show up and pay attention. Show up and pay attention to what's actually happening. Show up and pay attention to how we are feeling in the moment, and feel it. Hello, uncertainty. Nice to meet you. What do you need? Hello, anger. What do you need? Right? Hello, joy. Let's dance. Right? Hello, pain. Let's work together to help you feel better, right? When we show up and pay attention in that way and really embrace what's actually happening rather than trying to put it aside or dissociate from it or cast it off in this cancel culture kind of world we live in, especially in the Western world, we can move, we can alchemize whatever's going on in us. We can take the lead and turn it into gold, right? And through that, healing happens. I think the last little piece that's popping through, and I believe I want to give him credit. I want to say his last name was Elliot. I think that's right. There's a book called Plant Spirit Medicine. And in that book, there was a line, and this is an exact quote, so forgive me, but he alludes to this truth that healing isn't about living or dying, right? We all die. Every single one of us, every life form on the planet is going to pass from this physical form. So it's not about that. It's about how we live. And so we may have pain, we may have a disease, we may be struggling with something, but it's how we approach it. It's how we show up and pay attention to it. It's how we meet it, right? And so I often think about pain and suffering, like often like, oh, I'm in pain, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual, I'm in pain. And then we have a story around that pain, and then we're suffering. But pain is a sensation that we can address. And suffering is the story we build around that sensation. So if I say, okay, suffering, you can just sit here. Here's a popsicle. And I'm going to work with the pain, right? Then it unhooks it. And then I'm able to get deeper into what the pain's about and learn from it. Whereas the suffering, in my estimation, creates almost like a barrier that prevents me from working with that pain. So that's kind of a overview of work in the alchemical healing. And
Thank you so much. I'm feeling bathed in this richness, and I just really, um, yeah, there was so many beautiful pieces there, and I just really want to thank you for fulfilling on the commitment that we hold at the heart of our cosmic fire here today, by how you brought forward the power of the spiritual alchemy. Um, as a way to bring and bridge ancient wisdom into today, for holistic health and well-being in our modern day lives. And also just to thank you for shining such a light on using these tools for personal and global change. And also I love that metaphor of the feather. And when I look at you and hear you and all these gifts you're bringing forward, it makes me think of, um, also what we're trying to do here at this summit is to really, gather these wisdom ways, these ways of becoming so present and discerning. And that beautiful feather, is so sensitive. And when I think of you and see you and witness you, you have a book, you are doing pilgrimages, you're really a leader in this way. And so much gratitude to you for that, for doing that. Yeah, for bringing this good medicine forward. Um, our interview is coming to a close, and I'm wondering if there is anything that you feel in this moment that I've missed. I know there's such a wide rainbow here. We can, as a potpourri, a feast.
a
Um,
piece.
but if there's something that wants to be spoken here before we close.
Well, I think I would just like to invite us all to take a deep breath together, right? I would like to invite us to trust those moments of silence between the breath. I would like to invite us to find the gratitude in the small things and in the big things, the seen and the unseen things, in the people in our lives. I would invite us to follow that feather of truth, right? And if the feather of truth is not showing up as, or not that the, if there's untruths in our world, or if we're unbalanced, or the harmony is in discord, or, you know, if we're seeing things that aren't in accordance with natural law, it's not about judging it. It's about learning from it, right? It's about studying it. This life is a study,
Mm,
a study of life, a study of ourselves in this life. Ah, here I am, me. Today I'm doing great. Today I'm not doing so great, right? And it's okay. Rather than like, why I wish I was, or, oh, I invite us just to arrive, to show up, to pay attention
mm,
to every moment,
mm,
right? And then to take that breath again and arrive again and again and again, because right now is all we got right now. And it's a perpetual unfolding of nowness.
mm,
And when we fully arrive into our now, that's where life is happening. That's where the breath is happening.
mm,
That's where the beat of our heart is happening, right? And that space between each beat, that space between each breath brings us into presence. So that's what I invite for us, to arrive, show up, pay attention to your life, the good and the bad, right? Pay attention to the gratitude. The
mm,
gratitude even for the challenge and the struggle and the pain. Ah, thank you, pain, for helping me slow down, to help me assess. Thank you, challenge, for stopping me for a moment so that I could see really what needs to happen. Right? Thank you, obstacle, for preventing me from moving forward, because if I had left 2 minutes before, I would be in that accident that I am now passing and sending blessings, right? So
thank-
one last little drop. Whenever I hear the word breath now, or breathe, it's interesting. I have an automatic read that brings me into the presence, and I breathe. Like I'm always breathing, yes, but all of a sudden someone says breath or breathe, and suddenly I'm like, so I want to instill that into all of us out there. When that word comes into your ears, suddenly everything else stops and you bring awareness to that breath, because the breath is essential. Water is essential. Drinking water is essential, but breath is first,
mm,
right? We can only go a few moments without breathing. We can go a little longer without drinking, and we can go a little longer without eating, right? Earth, or air, water, earth.
mm.
But breath, it starts with breath. So
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. There's so much spaciousness in this invitation of breath. So I love that. Thank you. You have offered a generous gift to our summit audience of a special 2-hour talk that you did with the Shamans Directory called Egyptian Mysteries, Seeking Truth and Arriving into the Heart of Now, where you offer a reading from your book. And this will be underneath our video today. So I just want to share that with everyone who is listening, to make sure to scroll down under this video today. And this is where you will find a link to all of the amazing offerings that Zahra is bringing forward, including her book, her pilgrimages, and the foundations. So we didn't even get a chance to touch on that, but there's just a wealth there to check out. And I just want to say a big thank you again to Zahra for joining us. Thank you for your generosity, for sharing your wisdom, for all the amazing work you're doing in the world. And also to let the audience know that, Zahra, you are a Shamans Directory ambassador, and we're so grateful for this. You were one of the first to say yes to our One Fire, One Medicine vision. And we so appreciate that you have been supporting us since the Shamans Directory was still an idea in the cosmos, waiting to manifest in physical form. So your presence, your encouragement has been a huge inspiration, and we thank you for this. I want to say a big thank you to everyone who's viewing and participating today. Thank you so much for being here and joining us. And I hope you've had as much fun as I have soaking in this beautiful nature-based wisdom that Zahra has shared. We hope you will join us for our next interviews around the cosmic fire. Blessings.
Bye for now.